friends, welcome to Hotlanta, Georgia, home of Coca-Cola, UPS, Delta Airlines, and now Mercedes-Benz USA. We are here to drive the 2016 Mercedes-Benz GLC 300. But sadly, we were not welcomed with Southern cooking. We were welcomed with a major storm. So we found a place to shoot on the inside, which happens to be an airport for av geeks like me. Specifically, it is DeKalb Peachtree Airport. So while we work on the full episode, let's go through a tech review and start with the thing that gets us most excited, the engine. Okay, so the last time you and I looked under the hood of something like this, it was like 2 years ago with the GLK BlueTech. First off, this ain't no diesel. This is a 2-liter, 4-cylinder, direct-injected turbocharged engine. And the logic here is Mercedes-Benz is trying to replace a V6 with this engine and some technology. So you've got the turbocharger. It's 241 horsepower that comes in at 5,500 RPM. That's okay. But torque, 273, which comes in at a very low 1,300 RPM, which makes this thing incredibly useful when you're dealing with a vehicle of somewhat this size. Now, if you remember that film we shot, what was it, again, 2 years ago for that GLK, there was a very cool turbocharger intake plenum set up there. Basically, it was an adjustable vane, and there was this very cool way in which the air went 2 different ways to get a lot of torque, like over 300 pounds of torque out of that diesel engine. This one's not so fancy. This one's a single vane setup. And that's why we're down into 273. But still, it'll work. Come back for the full first drive episode to find out how that works on some of the northern Georgia roads. Now, what is that connected to? Well, it's connected to the 9-speed transmission that you and I drove, or I don't know when you're seeing this, but the GLE 450 Coupe. It's a torque converter automatic, obviously 9 speeds. But what's interesting about it is not so much that it has so many gears, it's the packaging of the whole thing. So the transmission, instead of being packaged in aluminum, it's actually packaged in magnesium, and the 9 gears sits in the same shape, basically the same size packaging as the 7-speed it replaces in the GLK. But wait, there is more. So this is an all-wheel drive vehicle. Actually, this very one here is 4Matic. You can get it. It's on offer basically as a 2-wheel drive, meaning rear-wheel drive, and then the all-wheel drive, the 4Matic as Mercedes calls it. So you have to have some sort of like locking torque system. So there is a separate locking differential on here that provides an additional 37 pound-feet of torque for low-end use. Now that we're talking about torque, let's press on with our GLC and the ATL, talk more about driving dynamics or the things that affect driving dynamics. Now, when you and I talk about things that affect driving dynamics in these films, usually it has something to do with some whiz-bang app on the suspension. And we do have that in this case, but there's also some sort of visual like hocus pocus in here, so we got to separate these things out. First, the whiz-bang suspension system. I think I just like saying whiz-bang. And basically, Mercedes has taken an unusual decision here. You know how we drive a bunch of Mercedes and we adjust all of the different mappings? It goes from Eco to Comfort to Sport Plus, now individual modes. That is now fitted as standard to all GLCs. And it affects the engine mapping, the steering mapping, the transmission mapping, and even the air conditioning. But here, they've separated out the dampers because the air suspension that we like so much in the C450 and the C400, and if you have not seen those episodes, you got to check them out because it makes a huge difference. That is optional on these, and sadly, all of the cars on this drive, none of them were fitted with it, so we'll have to get the car in California and drive it then with the air suspension. Anyway, I digress. But in our first drive review of this car, which is coming up, we do play with all the different dynamic control systems. In the north part of Georgia, we go to the Chattahoochee National Forest. I think I just like saying Chattahoochee. A lot of fun words today in this episode. Anyway, I digress again. Now, we talked about that 9-speed transmission. Now, this one here is a 4Matic. So how does it split the actual power? It's 55% of the power to the rear, 45 to the front, and then, of course, it adjusts based on traction loss. So that's the whiz-bang stuff. Now, what's like the visual hocus pocus? Now, if you drive a GLK or have seen a GLK, it looks very weird because I think it was designed by Etch-a-Sketch. You know, there's no like curved line on that thing at all. Where this, they actually put some, I would say, beautiful design on this thing, but it's not the design that I'm talking about here. Look at the size. It's about 2 inches wider, and then get this, it's 5 inches longer. Now, as great as that is for design, that completely transforms the driving dynamics. And again, come back for the full episode where we spend a lot of time on some curvy North Georgia roads, understanding the impact of a longer wheelbase car. Now, there is one other little piece here that does affect design, and this is I know I know I'm a very frustrated designer. We talk about design a lot of episodes, but take a look at this now. Now this thing it's got haunches now, where before there was just like a drop-off waterfall back here. So that's a function again of the 5 extra inches. You're able to put proportion on this thing, which transforms the look. And I would argue that if you look at a GLK, you would think that's like almost a B segment car, where this is a C segment car, even though it's based on a C class. And that's somewhat confusing, but now we're talking about proportions and probably talking about the sexiness of proportions, and soon I'm going to go on about sexiness of proportions in women. So why don't we just like focus on the interior. And now for my next trick, the interior, which is to get to a point of some confusion here. So if you are a Mercedes-Benz fanboy, or if you've just been following the crazy Mercedes-Benz nomenclature changes, the interior kind of points to what's going on. The logic, effectively, is aligning the sedans and the SUVs. So we already drove the GLE, and so that's aligning the GLE, or what used to be the ML, with the E-Class. Then there's the coming GLS, and that's aligning the big GL with the S-Class. And then take a look at this interior. This kind of gives you a hint as to why this is called the GLC. Now, effectively, this is straight out of that C450 we just drove, which is to say a good thing. There are a couple of like trim changes here and there, but overall kind of the same thing going on here. Does that provide a little bit more clarity as to why the name changes are going on? Of course, in some sort of like German corporate hierarchy, that makes a hell of a lot of sense, but I think for the next couple of years, it will confuse you and I. Now, to the back end. Now, there is an advantage to having the mentality of a 3-year-old and driving a completely unrealistic car. You never have to worry about loading Rugrats or the crap you get from like Gymboree in places like this. But when I borrow cars like this and start playing around with power liftgates, I always run into one problem. And the problem is, whenever you have like the folding down seats, and like they even have power fold down seats in most of these things, invariably the seat is always in a position like that, so you hit the button and then the damn seat hits the seat in the front, then you got to walk around, put the seat forward, come back, hit the button again, and then finally the system works. It's incredibly annoying. Well, Deutschland has come up with a solution. So basically it's, you know, fancy, you kick the thing and the gate comes up, which I gotta say, that is a neat little trick. And even though I have the mentality of a 3-year-old, I do like going to Costco. Now check this out. There is a button back here. Notice, I already proved to you the seat is way back, like a 6'5" kind of person would be there. I press this button, look what happens to the seat. It moves forward by itself, so I don't have to take my lazy ass to the forward port of the car, move the seat forward, come back here, cursing every engineer as I do it. Instead, I say, vielen Dank. And with that, that's about all the tech bits for our tech review of the GLC and the ATL. Make certain you come back for our full first drive review of the GLC and the ATL, where we drive this very vehicle on incredibly wet roads in northern Georgia. Now with that, I want to leave you guys with 2 points. Number one, a bit of a trivia question. So here we are at DeKalb Peachtree Airport in DeKalb County, just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And no matter what airport you go to, there is like a 3-letter code for it. So LAX is for LAX, Los Angeles International, or EWR is for Newark, or ATL is for the ATL. What does DeKalb Peachtree Airport have in common with Porsche? Not Mercedes, but Porsche. Let me know in the comments below or via our social media, Motorman TV all one word, Motorman TV all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And I absolutely want to thank the folks at DeKalb Peachtree Airport and Atlantic Aviation for letting us film the GLC in the ATL but not really outside in the ATL where it was very wet. And then the second thing I want to leave you guys with is a gentle, friendly reminder that we are available on Apple iTunes and Google Play. Yes, our fancy new app that we put together with the fine folks at OpenPath Products is available for download for free at the Apple iTunes Store as well as Google Play. And we'd love to get some feedback from you guys on the usage of the app. Are you experiencing any bugs, anything going on? What do you like about it? Let us know in the comments below, or let us know via our social media, because I'd love to pass that to the guys at OpenPath Products, who are major car guys I'd like to add, so we can kind of grow that audience and grow some of the features of the app. So what do they say down here? Bye, y'all.